Hello writers, come write with me. My name is Mykela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my channel, Write with Mykela. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. If this is your first time joining me, then I'm excited to have you here on my channel. If you've been with me from somewhere along the beginning or somewhere along the journey, I'm glad you're returning. Today we are going to discuss some terms or ideas, and then we will add to a down soldier. The first idea we're looking at today is context clues. Context clues are hints that the author, writer, gives to help define a difficult or unusual word, or to help the reader understand a word that may not be familiar. The clue may appear within the same sentence as the word to which it refers, or it may follow in a preceding sentence. Follow a preceding sentence. There are many types of context clues, and they include definition clues, example clues, synonym clues, antonym clues, punctuation clues, inference clues, and a few others, including root words and affixes. We discussed prefixes and suffixes, and there are context clues that include mood or tone or cause and effect as well. We're not going to discuss all the different types, but just that you know that it's a clue to help the readers know what you're trying to say. Definition clues, probably the most common, and they are where the author specifically states the definition nearby the unfamiliar word. This is also used with acronyms like Secretary of State, SOS. So the first time in the document, they might say Secretary of State, and then they'll put in parentheses behind it SOS. Afterwards, the text would only use the word or the acronym. So throughout the rest of the document, you'll see SOS. And you know that means Secretary of State and not someone special, right? So a lot of places use acronyms, and they use the context clues to help the readers that are not familiar with the topic or whatever, or the industry, to help with that. Now we can figure out that with synonym or antonym clues, a synonym or antonym would be used instead of a definition. Example would be, my friend is sometimes hasty when he does his homework. He does it too quickly and is careless. Here we get the idea that hasty is quickly. Another example is, I was astonished and amazed when I won free tickets to the concert. Astonished and amazed are synonyms. I feel like I have something in my eye. I don't want to. Okay, sorry about that. Another example is, my friend is compassionate, but sometimes she can be mean. The but tells us antonym, so compassionate and mean are antonyms here. And I told you there were other things that you could do. The context clues for, punctuation clues, or that's where, like, the parentheses for the SOS, that's a punctuation thing. Inference clues. So you have other clues. We're not going to go into all of those, but you know that they're there. You can use them in your writing. You want your writing to flow. So why do we need context clues? Or how will this help us? This tool is something we use to help our readers and to make our writing a little clearer. If you write fantasy, you might make up terms, and you would need to define them. but you don't want to bog down your writing. You don't want to hand your readers a dictionary, right? People don't want to read a dictionary unless they're crazy people like me. I used to. But if you can intersperse things so that the readers can acquire knowledge as he or she goes along, then you can use context clues to help your reader do that. You can use context clues with slang or idiom as well. Sometimes, like I was reading Derek Gunn's, there were 4 books, the Vampire Apocalypse, and he kept spelling this word, T-Y-R-E-S, Tyrus, and I was like, what the heck? They kept exploding the Tyrus. If I had been from England, I probably would have realized that those were tires. They spell tires with Y in England, or so I'm told. I didn't Google it to check it out. So I was reading this book and not knowing anything about Tyrus for the longest time and what they were exploding and stuff, until at one point they explode the Tyrus, and so the vehicle could not go down the road. Oh, okay. Tyrus, tires, got it. So, context clues are also very good. In that case, he was an English writer or whatever from England, and he was right. What threw me was he's writing about things in the United States. His location, his setting was the United States. You had the different states and everything. So I was expecting American English. Anyway, he didn't give me enough context. If he had put that part about the vehicle not driving sooner, that would have given me enough context clues so I could have had the word sooner. Context clues are good also if you write a story, say, with a mechanic, and you use a lot of vocabulary the normal person wouldn't understand. I have spark plugs and belts and this and that. I don't understand that. So context clues can help. Again, you don't want a dictionary. We're not writing dictionaries here. So if there are too many terms that your reader wouldn't understand, then ask yourself if the term adds to your story. If it doesn't, you can simplify the scene. Now, in Startup Gate, they do this all the time. Samantha Carter would get all excited and want to give all the details, and she'd start using all these words and stuff, and she'd give all these details about this with this, and Colonel O'Neill he would just say, will it work? And in this way, the viewer understood that there was science behind things, but the episode wasn't bogged down with the full explanation. And sometimes you kind of wanted to hear the rest of her explanation, but yeah, the story got to move on because he's like, will it work? Make it happen. That kind of thing. Just cut to the chase. Will it work? And that's all he wanted to know. He didn't want to know all the details, because she had to take care of the details anyway. So he wanted to know, will it work? How long is it going to take? Blah, blah, blah. Can we count on this? So we can do this in our stories. We can certainly do this in our stories. We can have an expert explain with some context clues, and then somebody asks, will it work? To cut to the chase, which is an idiom alert. Cut to the chase. Leave a comment on if you use context clues when you read or you write. Have you helped your reader out by giving context clues? Have you read a book where you're just like, I have no idea what that means? And then you read a little bit more and you're like, oh, that must mean this. Okay, so leave a comment on if you utilize context clues when you're reading or if you use them when you're writing. Our next term, and context clues wasn't really a term, but it was something we needed to think about. We want our readers to enjoy our work, so we had to think about context clues. Our next term is Ossify. Okay. It's a weird word. It looks funny too. Ossify. Okay, ossify means turn into bone or bony tissue. Synonyms of this meaning are harden, solidify, stiffen, rigidify, petrify, fossilize, indurate. Another definition is to become rigid or fixed in attitude or position, to cease developing. Synonyms of this meaning are become inflexible, become rigid, fossilize, harden, rigidify, or stagnate. Well, there's some synonyms for both definitions. You can kind of see how it rounds out the term that way. Oh, in our writings, if you have two sides and people listen and discuss things, great! No story. But if each side ossifies, then what do you have? Think Romeo and Juliet. The other family was just bad. And who knows what the original argument was about? Nobody remembers that. They're bad. The Montagues and Capulets. They pointed the finger, they stuck their thumb up their nose or thumbed their nose or whatever the term was when they did that to the other family. And they didn't see the other family as human or respectable. And the relationship between the two families had ossified. It was very rigid. It wasn't flexible. It wasn't growing or whatever. Now, in Star Wars, Luke wanted to save his father, and he didn't want to believe that his father had ossified to belong to the dark side. He wanted to believe there was good in him. And then Luke tells his father that he wants to save him, but I want to save you. And Darth Vader says, you already have. So he was able to break out of that ossification. In your stories, are your characters inflexible? This is your choice. You're the writer. Are your characters inflexible? Have they ossified? Or are they capable of change and development? And we do want at least our protagonists to grow and to not be ossified. Because if they're ossified, they're not going to grow. They're not going to be the hero we need. So we don't want our hero or our protagonist to be ossified. So, are they capable of change and development? These are your decisions. I say over and over again. Writing is fun. And this is why. We as writers, we have so many choices. And you go this way, to go to the left, go to the right, be ossified, be flexible, whatever you want. Put a mountain here, put a city there, make it rain, make it sunshine, make rainbows. It's your choice. You have so many choices. You even have choices through twists. Some of the vocabulary, we twist things around, or you have it, maybe the protagonist is ossified at first, and then you break through that and change. You have choices. And with the twists and turns, that's fun. Maybe the protagonist wants to save the antagonist for whatever reason. Like Luke, it was his dad. He wanted to save him. But the antagonist has ossified to his or her position. But near death or just before the protagonist deals the final blow, the antagonist concedes. Oh, yes, I see your point. You're right. But it is a trick, right? You are the writer, is your choice. So if the antagonist, the protagonist is about to kill the antagonist, he's like, yes, you're right. I see that you're right. I will mend my ways. And then jumps up and grabs the sword or whatever and goes back to fighting. So he hasn't really learned. Whatever, it's just a trick. So, but if that protagonist has that hope, then the antagonist can use that hope to his advantage. It's your choice. You are the writer. You get to decide how this plays out. Okay? Let's turn to your stories with a down soldier. First, remember that all works shared on the channel are copyright protected. Even if you decide not to ever use it again, it's still protected. So there's no worry. Send in your writings to WritewithMykela@gmail.com. I look forward to reading your stories on the channel. I read yours, you read mine, or you listen to mine. And maybe we can't copy what each other's doing, but maybe it gives us an idea of what to do. Because, like, sometimes I go to craft fairs, right? And I see what they've done. I'm like, oh, I could do that. Oh, that's interesting that they added this to that. And I can bring it home and make it my own. I'm not copying. I don't have their pattern. I don't use the same yarn. I don't use the same colors. But just the idea of what they did gives me an idea. So there is a line there of what we can use. I can't take your scene and just cut and paste it down into mine. But if you decide to do this, well, that's a good idea. Okay, in this story, this happened. You know, if you pull out a plot of a story, you could write the story too. That's not the copyright protection. Copyright protection is the actual work. Okay? And we did do a video on copyright protection. Now, we've written on a down soldier 9 times. In season 3.1, it was episodes 11, 27, and 35. In season 3.2, episodes 5, 13, 21, 29, 37, and 45. If you remember back, the first writing prompt was to imagine a soldier that came to after a big battle. And then we went from there. We don't have a shared plot for this. I hope you're having fun. I hope you have an intriguing protagonist. I hope you have an active goal or problem. And I hope there are stakes of some kind. Not the steak that you eat, but steak, S-T-A-K-E-S, steak. I hope you have stakes of some kind. And a ticking clock. Gotta move it forward. And all of that is interrelated and building to a climax. These are the elements to a good story, along with some good editing. So pause the video, write a page or two, or at least a paragraph. And I've told you many times, a lot of writers aim for 500 words a day. I don't know why 500 words, because you can do that in half an hour. But if you are wanting to write every day, 500 words a day is a good goal. 1,000 words, 1,200 words, whatever. Good goal. So see if you can use this writing prompt to meet your own personal writing goal. And come back and I will read what I wrote. Welcome back, writers. Now let me read what I wrote. Kamek felt Jules shaking his shoulder. He rolled back. "You were right," stated Jules. "The chicken is scratching around in her nest, and she laid her egg for today." Kamek sat up. He could tell that everyone else but Molst was already up, and they looked anxious. He supposed that they wanted to get down the tunnel as much as possible. Kamek roused Molst, and then they headed down the tunnel after Burdock, and he hitched the horses to the wagon. Even though the wounds had healed, Kamek still felt pain, so Vicenthace encouraged him to ride in the wagon. Kamek didn't know how long he had ridden, but Burdock and Molst were walking ahead with the torch, and Vicenthace drove the wagon. Then Kamek started seeing writing on the cavern wall. "Hold up," Kamek called. "Bring me the torch." Vicenthace pulled the horses to a stop, and Burdock brought the torch to Kamek. Kamek stood up in the wagon and held the torch closer to the wall. Kamek ran his hand over the writing, but it wasn't writing he recognized. "Maybe your glass," suggested Vicenthace. Kamek asked if the brake for the wagon was on, and once Thace confirmed that it was, he handed her the torch. Kamek got out the glass and started trying to read. Roses are sometimes red, but not always. Roses always have thorns, but not always a sweet smell. Fountains have water, but not always to drink. Fountains can relax, but be wary and don't tarry. Right paths are not always right. Right paths are not always easy. The text went on. Kamek read it again and again. Then he glanced at Vic and Thace, and he read it aloud. He asked her if she knew what it meant, but she didn't know. Kamek said, "How about I drive the wagon and you write it down? Do we have anything to write with?" Vic and Thace normally brought writing supplies to the fountain, so she found her journal and agreed to write the words. She got Kamek to read it to her again. Sartla said, "It says roses always have thorns. So does that mean that the thorns that got you were from a rose bush?" Kipley looked at her. "Berry bushes have thorns." Kamek held up a hand. "That was not her question, son." Kamek looked at Sartla. "I did not see a rose, but we will look for roses." Kamek got them moving again, and he told them to look out for more text so they could see if it meant anything. After an hour, Burdock motioned to Kamek to stop the wagon. Burdock leaned down with the torch, and the ground was uneven, and stones protruded up in the path. Burdock carefully stepped over the stones, and then he turned back to examine things. "I don't think we want the wheels to run over some of these stones," he said. He walked back and forth across the bad area and kept looking at the wagon to judge the width. Finally, he had Kamek swing the wagon as much to Kamek's left as possible, and then to swing back to the right to ride over the uneven area. Burdock handed the torch to Vic and Thace while he and Moth each stood beside a horse. The horse from the village and the unicorn trailed along behind the wagon. They made it over the uneven area, but then, after a short way, they had another area to navigate. Kamek could tell that Lillian was getting nervous, so he asked her what was up, and she mentioned that the torch just staying lit and how that seemed unusual, but to navigate these things they needed the torch. Kamek admitted that torches didn't usually stay lit that long, but there was nothing he could do. Pardon me, I feel like I had to sneeze. Okay, after they crossed over 3 difficult areas, Kipley pointed to the wall. Excuse me. There was more text. Kamek had to get off the wagon to read these because the wagon wasn't as close to the wall this time. The text was similar in that they didn't understand why the text was phrasing things the way it did, but Vic and Thace wrote it down. After an hour or so, they were all getting tired of being in the tunnel, but none of them wanted to stop, not even the children. Up ahead, there were 2 paths, one to the left and one to the right. The right path had many torches interspersed along the walls, and the floor looked smooth. Burdock headed over to check it out. "This path looks good. Let's take this one." "What about the other one?" asked Jules. Burdock wasn't in the habit of taking orders from children, but he dutifully went to the other tunnel, and he noticed that it was much darker and the floor was not smooth at all. "This one is no good." "But," started Kipley. Kipley looked at Jules and then his father. "Father, the wall said the right path is not right." He motioned to Vic and Thace. "Maybe she'll read it to us again." Vic and Thace raised her eyebrows and got out her journal. After she read the first entry to them, Kamek got down and took the torch from Burdock. He went to the left tunnel and sighed heavily. He wasn't good at solving riddles, and this seemed too obvious. and the other path definitely looked more inviting. "Come on, Moss," Kamek said. "We'll be back. Just stay here." Kamek's legs still hurt, but he was glad to walk on it. He hoped he would work out some of the pain. The stones were terribly turned up in the left path, and Moss twisted his ankle more than once. Kamek shook his head to himself. He didn't see how to get the wagon down this tunnel, but as they walked back, Kamek held up the torch a little higher. "I think we can make it. Look, there's a smooth path on the edge. If we keep the wagon wheels on that part." Moss looked at him with questions in his eyes. Kamek turned to his friend. "Look, friend, I don't want to take the wrong path, and I don't want to spend extra time. We can't fight whatever is out there." And Kamek cut off and looked away. He looked back. "I never put much stock in legends and tales, but that battlefield..." Moss's shoulders sagged. "Our village, my wife..." He shook his head. "How much time do we have?" Kamek shook his head. I don't remember. Already the stones should be in place, but..." "I remember the story. It said the people would not believe, so they would lose most everything that they held dear, and they would be given one more chance to put things right. But I don't remember the time either." Kamek clapped Small on the shoulder. "Come, this has to be our path." "The horses can't walk this," stated Moss. "Can you and I pull the wagon?" asked Kamek. "If it's empty and you aren't hurt too badly," replied Moss. They went back and told the others about the thin places for the wheels and the people and the horses to walk. No one liked the idea, and they looked down the right path with all the light. Lillian said, "Can we at least get a torch from there?" Kamek shrugged. He went to the other path. Just before he entered it, he looked up. He saw writing across the top. His heart leapt. The writing was too high for him to use his glass. Bigginsay said, "Don't. I see your fear in your frozen form. We can't afford to lose you." Kamek glanced over to her, looked back up to the writing once more, before heading to the group. The three men would take turns pulling the wagon. That left Bigginsay and Lillian to guide the two horses, and Kipley and Jules to guide the horse from the village. The goat, the chicken, and rabbit were still in the wagon. One of the three men would walk ahead and find where they needed to slightly adjust the wagon's direction, and things went a lot smoother than they anticipated. At the end of the narrow tunnel, they came out into a wide courtyard with a fountain and white stone walls and benches. There were torches everywhere, so it looked like outside light. The walls had windows like it had been an underground village or castle. The group decided to stop to rest, but Kamek told them not to drink from the fountain. Okay, writers, that's what I'm adding today. Leave a comment on if you would take the left tunnel that wasn't smooth, or would you take the tunnel with all the light and the smooth floor? None of that happened today again. I guess that's why I'm kind of getting frustrated with it, but I might have to go back and reread and throw in some extra stuff, but I'll tell you what to throw in so you can kind of surmise it. I added over 1,400 words today, so that's quite a bit. Now they can have more than a tunnel. There can be action in this castle or this courtyard, this underground courtyard. There can be more action. So we'll see where I go. See if something pops out of the fountain or is hiding behind a window, or what I decide to do with it. Maybe they'll see some more writing, or maybe they'll find some swords, or I could do a lot with this area. Now that we've opened up to this area, do a lot. And probably the reader wants to know what would have happened if they did take the right tunnel. So I don't know how I will work that in. That may be something you just don't ever know. An end that's never tied. Not necessarily a good thing, but I'm having fun here. This may not ever be published. I don't plan to publish it. It's just a story. Leave a comment on how many words you've added. I told you over 1,400 for me, so let's see how many you've added. Join me Friday for chapter 1 of, was it? Yeah, we just did the plot. So chapter 1 of Eleni's Pride, Gaining Freedom. This is book 3. Join me Tuesday for a little jargon and adding to your story with a setting. Leave a comment below on which story is your favorite so far. It could be your favorite that you are writing, or your favorite on the channel, or your favorite that you've read. You know, because as writers, we are supposed to read, so you should be leaving comments on the books that you're reading, so I can read the books that you read, you can read the books that I read, that kind of thing. I've been reading the Sookie Stackhouse novels by Charlene Harris, and it is 13 books long, and I'm on book 13 now. So, book 13, the one I'm currently reading, is Dead Ever After. Like I said, Charlene Harris is the author. And I think the title is a play on words. Normally you say happily ever after. You know, I talked about the West, how we like happy endings. Happily ever after. So this is Dead Ever After, because every title has Deadlock, Dead in Dallas, Dead After Dark, Dead, you know, so they all have dead in them. So this is a play on words, I'm sure. My sister-in-law lent me Animal Dreams by Barbara Kingsolver. I haven't read it yet. I haven't started it yet, but I plan to. Leave a comment on what you're currently reading. So the book and the author, so we can find it. Because if I told you Vampire Apocalypse, you type that into Amazon, you might come up with 4 or 5 different authors doing that. So I have to tell you Derek Gunn. And I'm not sure I would recommend that book because there's no ending. This leaves you in a lurch. Anyway, all 4 books left you in a lurch. Anyway, I enjoyed them, but I don't recommend it when they don't have an end like that because it's frustrating to me. Don't forget to visit my website, WritewithMykela.com, and read some character bios. Send your writings and chapters to WritewithMykela@gmail.com. Leave comments on your favorite characters. Leave comments on the blogs from my writing coach's blog. Her blog is authorkristenlamb.com. Leave a comment on the blogs. Everything. Any comment that you want. I wrote 500 words today. I started a new story. I got a journal with writing prompts and I'm enjoying it. Any of that stuff, fair game, leave it in the comments. If you hit the like and subscribe and the bell, then we will continue to write together and other people will have a higher chance of finding this video and this channel, since your likes will push the video out to a greater audience. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who would like this video, then please share it with them. This is Mykela with Write with Mykela. Bye for now.